Hey, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. This time, we're going to go over the top 32 results from the European Open Championship. So, I had a lot of people in my YouTube comments killing me because I was talking about, the meta after Atlantic City and the next event being Atlanta and Vegas. And I had people killing me in my comment section talking about, you're ignoring Europe, you hate Europe, you guys don't ever want to cover European events. And I wanted to just apologize for that because that was never my intention. I actually didn't even know this tournament was happening. I was ignorant to it. I'm sorry for that. And I scrambled really hard. You guys might be able to tell if you guys are friends with me on Facebook or saw me scrounging on Facebook. I try to do everything in my power to get as much information as possible. And I think I got a really good, summation of what happened at this event in the top 32. There's one thing I couldn't get the information on, but we'll talk about it at the end. It's kind of funny. But, yeah, so we're going to go over that in just a minute. Real quick, though, if you guys are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you guys can stay up to date with all the awesome Dragon Ball Super content we post on this channel. If you guys are looking for a Dragon Ball Super community to get in touch with, talk about your decks, talk about the game, anything like that, definitely check out our Discord server, which is in the description below. Link to it is there. And if you guys are longtime fans of the channel, want to help me out, consider supporting me on Patreon. That link is also in the description below. Helps me just keep bringing you guys this content that you guys know and love and that I love to bring you guys. And I've also been posting a lot of competitive content on that Patreon as well. So if you guys are looking to up your game, that could be a really good resource for you guys there. So yeah, we're going to get into this top 32 breakdown. This was held at University of Salford in Europe. So, I wish my college hosted Dragon Ball tournaments or card game tournaments. That would be super duper sick. But yeah, this was hosted there in one of their halls. So we're going to talk about the top cut breakdown. So I'm going to leave the big bad for last. You guys are seeing on the screen right here right now. But we're going to go with 7 Broly first. So this is something that I don't think anyone's necessarily surprised about, although I am surprised that, 7 was a number it got up to because of Cronoa, because of the hype that's just been surrounding the new Goku 3-drop promo for the power booster that goes into the height of mastery. I'm kind of surprised it's got 7 in top cut, but that's really amazing for the deck. I'm really happy about that. If you guys know the channel, you know that I love this deck and I love this leader and everything about Lineage. So, even with the Cronoas, I guess it didn't really matter too much for the players that played at this tournament. And what I found out from a lot of the European players was that they were mostly playing Height of Mastery into Victory Strike, which is really interesting to me. And I think that, personally, from personal experience, I think they should just ditch the Victory Strike win con, especially with the way I've been testing the deck. Height of Mastery is just a good enough win condition. What can kind of happen is, when you're playing for an ultimate win condition, like a one-of in your deck win condition, you can get a little bit steered off the driven path, right? So I remember back when I was playing Hercule during the Pit of Storm format 2 ACs ago, a little while ago, I remember that, Demigod was a win condition essentially, and a lot of times you're just digging and digging and digging. You're just ignoring every other card in your deck, just trying to get to that Demigod so you can auto win the game. And while that auto win is very powerful, sometimes it can steer you off the driven path. So I don't think Victory Strike is needed at all in this deck, and if you can't afford it or don't own it, I think that's completely fine. I think you should just continue to play the deck, cut Victory Strike, cut U7 Representative. I don't think you really need it. The deck is still incredibly powerful without Victory Strike. But with that being said, congratulations to all these players playing Broly, because I love this deck, and it's incredibly powerful, especially with the new Goku promo. So yeah, awesome job. 5 Frieza swap. This is really cool. I'm gonna give myself 1 point for this one because from what I found online, a lot of these red Frieza swap decks were red-yellow, and I kind of predicted that. I talked about that in a few videos, and I talked about that in one of my Patreon articles as well, that this deck would transition to red-yellow because of the kind of the diminishing presence of aggro in the format. Red Frieza swap was able to transition to red-yellow, so it gave you a bit more of a control feel. You're able to negate things with Cold Bloodlust on top of your 5-drop Frieza swap, and yeah, it gave you a bit more control, better mid-range matchups. So that makes total sense. I don't know if they sideboarded the blue. I wanted to see if I could find the top cut lists, the actual deck lists, but those didn't seem to be posted anywhere. If you guys find those, drop those in the comments below. That'd be really helpful. But apparently one of them that made top 16 was a mono red that played a lot of black cards, like a high black count. So that was really cool too. Yeah, just cool that I kind of saw this was happening. I mean, I know a thing or two about a thing or two, you know what I'm saying? So we'll get into the next part of top cut. We had 3 pan and top cut. So this is just the 50-50 deck. I talk about this a little bit in one of my Patreon articles. It's the ultimate nullifier. It can just make any situation borderline fair for you. I mean, it's an unfair combo for the most part, Chain Zeno, but you can bring anything back to a 50-50 state. But I think that's one of the problems. I think that's why pan sees a very kind of small representation in top cuts, is because while it does bring everything back to 50-50, it only brings most things back to 50-50, and it's hard to get a leg up when your deck makes things fair but doesn't give you a huge advantage. You have to be in the really prime situation to do that. You have to get your opponent down to 3 or 2 life, and you have to be at like, you know, 5 or 4 life and ready to awaken for this Chain Zeno play to really like dominate the game state. So for that reason, I think that's why Pan will stay a low rep in top cut, and I'm not surprised it's low rep in top cut. It's hard to get that leg up when your deck just you know, resets everything to a fair point essentially. Then we have 3 Shenron. So we had 1 hand control, which was a great pick in my opinion. I talked about this in a few videos, in the AC meta analysis video, and in the you know, Shenron hand control deck profile I just put up, as well as one of the Patreon articles, is that Shenron hand control is a great pick for this tournament, especially coming off of a tournament where Janemba you know, had just won, because Shenron hand control eats Janemba alive. So that was a really good pick. Good for him that he got top 16, I do believe. And no pod in his deck, which was interesting, but no objection either. So like I kind of said as well, that deck just doesn't really need objection, especially when you win cons on turn 4. Although he didn't play pod, he cut pod for a lot more room for red stuff, which I think I'm going to be able to get his deck profile on the channel, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, 1 Goku swap to Victory Strike. So everyone knows that Shenron kind of goes like bread and butter with the new Goku Power Booster card, because it sets up your swap 7, your Sparking 7 for your swap pretty much perfectly. It gets you that 7 Dragon Balls engraved, your Sparking 7's automatic. Thank God that is not a Child's Wish target because of its 19k attack power, otherwise that would be absolutely broken. But nevertheless, I mean, going into the height of mastery from that is incredibly powerful as well. And apparently this one was also playing Victory Strike. You know, you're playing Shenron, you're digging through your deck, you can see a gajillion cards, but well, I don't really think you need it. I don't think you need it too much. You end up playing a lot of extra cards because of the U7 representative. Don't necessarily think you need it. It's a good card. Maybe tech it still. I don't know. I think it makes you play a different build where you have to play a lot more U7s, and I don't know if that's necessarily optimal. But nevertheless, congratulations to these players. They know what they're doing for sure. Then we had 1 Shenron Maidens. So that was actually a really interesting pick. I keep hearing about Maidens with Broly, Shenron, and you know, you heard about it with Zeno back at like 2 or 3 formats ago. Maidens are a powerful engine for sure. I mean, Brienne can just lead to incredibly big negs for your opponent, and giving that thing triple attack is definitely no joke. What's really interesting is that there's no Shenron Gogeta in this top cut spot, as far as I can tell, and as far as I'm able to, you know, find out from Facebook and whatnot. So really interesting that made no top cut, and it's a weird thing, right? You know, this deck is as high as Shenron's ceiling is, as many things as it can do. The Shenron Gogeta deck is like building a puzzle. That's the way I put it earlier today, actually. It's like building a puzzle, and you're trying to just establish your pieces. You're trying to just do everything on curve. You're trying to hit, you know, Crisis Crusher on 1 or Borgos on 1, whatever your 1-drop play is. Turn 2, you want to hit Objection. Turn 3, you need to hit your Figure of Majesty. You know, ideally double Figure of Majesty if you can manage it. And then turn 5, you just drop your win condition and go for game. I think people are teching a lot. You know, a lot of ways to kind of interrupt that momentum. You know, removing the Figure of Majesties, attacking real fast, real wide, and you know, setting up things that disrupt the Gogeta 7. So I think because even though Shenron's ceiling is so high, that deck really just kind of tries to do one thing, and does that one thing really well. And it can also go into Gogeta 5, it can go into Out of Class Vegeta, but I think people are so prepped for it that might have knocked it out of top cut. So pretty interesting thing to think there. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, there was no Shenron Gogeta in top cut, this event was a joke. I believe this event hit about 250 players. I know a lot of great players from the European communities definitely made it out there. So don't sell yourself short. Don't be kind of arrogant and ignorant and say that, oh, because this good deck didn't make top cut, this event was trash. There's no reason for that. I know these players, they probably tested their butts off and prepared for this event, tried to play the best thing they possibly could. So you know, I'm sure there was a good reason, whether it was side deck choices, tech choices, that people didn't play Shenron Gogeta, and it was very interesting that it didn't make top cut. I'm very surprised by that, to be honest with you guys. So 1 U7 Frieza. This was apparently the standard build. It was just your Victory Strike with your typical Goku line to awaken, and apparently it also did play the U7 Frieza line to burn the opponent if they decide to self-awaken really fast and like that. What's really interesting is that I thought this might have been the new but I thought this might have also played the new promo booster, power booster Goku, because you can go into Height of Mastery, tap down your opponent's things, and then also just go into your Victory Strike from there. And this deck, I think, utilizes Victory Strike much better than either the Broly leader or the Shenron leader. But it makes sense that it didn't do that, because you do play a lot of off-color things in that Frieza deck where you might not be able to consistently charge for yellow very easily, and you do want to play Objection, so you do need to play some amount of blue. So the fact that typical U7 Frieza made its top cut is it's pretty cool. It's not necessarily surprising, and the deck is very strong, and Victory Strike's a busted keyword. So good job on this person for topping. Then we had one Vegeta baby. So this is really cool. I really like this deck. I'm a really big fan of the power booster. I actually just picked mine up today, so that was really cool that I was able to get those power boosters, because I think this deck is really powerful, really fun to play as well. You know, it kind of just lets you drop a boss monster and just slide for the Sky Dragon your opponent, if you guys know that from Yu-Gi-Oh. But really cool deck, really fun. It's really cool this guy made top cut. I heard that this deck was on a roll actually until it hit an unfortunate Janemba matchup. I think it was top 16 or top 8, but yeah, I heard this guy was like absolutely just dominating the game state of all the games he played until he hit an unfortunate Janemba matchup. So sorry to hear that happened. Would have loved to see you go all the way or further up in the tournament, because Vegeta Baby is an awesome deck. But congratulations to you again. And then right before we get to the big dominant force of the format, we had one knockout strike Gogeta. I believe it was a starter deck Gogeta. As far as I could tell, it was a starter deck one, not the movie promo one, which we saw with a Storm top cut finish at the last AC event. But apparently this was a starter deck Gogeta leader. I could not find out what this leader, you know, played in its main deck. Unfortunately, I wish I really could have. My speculations is that it was some type of Storm build with, like, you know, Bardoks and Videls and Gokus and Geens, things like that. I would have speculated it was one of those types of decks because of the leader's backside ability to limit the amount of counters your opponent can use, even though that ruling was changed kind of interestingly. I don't know really why they did that, but yeah, that was another one of the leaders that made top cut. So kudos to this person playing definitely had a left field leader, so that was pretty cool. Now we get to the dominant force of this entire tournament, which was the Janemba. The Janemba, mill your opponent out, cheese, defense, turtle, defend the castle, dot deck. 11 Janemba and top cut. This is actually a really dominating experience. I'm gonna do the math on this real quick. I want to see what the math on this is for top cut. So 11 divide 32. That's 34%, almost 35% of top cut, which is really interesting. Again, I still haven't found out that exact number for tier 0, and this is nowhere near that. I'm not trying to make any tier 0 comparison, but that's a huge portion of top cut. 11 Janembas in this top cut. I'm actually interested to know what the top cut top 16 Janemba ratio was. But I mean, this has just become the juggernaut of the format by far, coming off of an Atlantic City win and coming into a European championship, basically the equivalent of American Nationals. I think this was the same exact kind of equivalent, European Open Championship / European Nationals. This deck was just the new juggernaut of the format. It just it can easily tech for everything in its main deck. You can play your Kamis, you can play your Dendes, you can play your Pilafs, you can play your Mafubas, you play all the defensive combos in the world, all your 10k pseudo super combos. A lot of these builds have been cutting back on Deadly Offenders and Vegetos and just making room for raw combo power and tech options. And when you can kind of play something for every matchup in the format in your main deck, you're gonna have a good time. And when your side deck can even help you specialize further than that, it makes total sense this deck won the event. I mean, it gives Shenron a hard time because Shenron just accelerates its own game super duper fast, because Janemba can mill it out so fast, because it pulls the Dragon Balls out of its deck. It's got a great Broly matchup because it's hard to deal damage with all the defensive cards you play, and you have outplay to the height of mastery play with like Sparking for Dimension Magic, Mafuba, Pilaf, things like that. You have outplay to that, your leader negate as well. And this deck has a pretty low ceiling. Not to, you know, harsh on anyone that played this deck or say anything, you know, bad about them. This deck does have a low ceiling though. It's turn your leader sideways, mill your opponent out, drop battle cards and mill your opponent out, remove things from the board. It's pretty simple. It does what it does. It does that very well. Low ceiling. It doesn't leave a lot of room for misplays. And for that reason, I'm not surprised that this deck won the event again in a Janemba versus Broly Heightened Mastery Finals. I'm not surprised by that at all. I am a bit surprised that it took up so much top cut, though. This deck is definitely the juggernaut to beat, but it's hard because there's no real cards you can put in to help against Janemba matchups, at least very obviously to the eye. There's no real, like, there's no Haru for Janemba, there's no Mafuba for Janemba. There's no like auto win cards like that. You have to just play really tight, and you have to have a strategy that can beat Janemba. That's really important. So really interesting that Janemba won again, but again, not surprised. So I mean, I talked about this a little bit in the last event coverage video, what you can do now that Janemba is the deck that came off of a win right here. I mean, Shenron Hand Control, another great pick to kind of combat this type of deck of androids with the cell chain. Even though the 3-drop cell got limited, you still have great options to drop your opponent's hand to like 1 card or 0 cards by turn 5. And against Janemba, turn 5s are really real kind of expectation to meet. So you want to see a lot of hand control options in this format, but what happens there is you have worse matchups against things like Broly, you have worse matchups against things like Shenron. So if these it's hard because these decks really hard counter Janemba, but they have really tough matchups against the rest of the board, rest of the field. So What are we going to see? I don't know. I'm expecting Janemba to keep doing very, very well. It's hard, like I said, to tech or to side deck specifically for Janemba, but I think this comes down a little bit to player skill. You have to be able to build your deck properly. You have to be able to make the right plays to beat a Janemba player, which I think is, I think it's a good part of the format. I mean, you know, this, like, I won't lie, I won't sugarcoat it or anything like that. These decks are a bit boring to see in Top Cut. I mean, as far as like Janemba, Shenron, and Broly Headed Mastery, which is Broly Headed Mastery definitely takes the lineage deck, kind of perverts it, just, you know, slam my boss monster down, win the game. Those 3 decks are not the most exciting decks to watch play. They're not the most skillful decks to pilot, but I mean, I think at the end of the day, the players with more skill will definitely be rewarded for that amount of skill over lesser players, you know, who aren't quite there yet. And I hope you guys are building up to get there, because I think the future Dragon Ball Super is going to be excellent. I think we're really starting to pan out the format. I mean, we had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different decks in Top Cut. Honestly, it's really good. We've come a long way from where we were at. We've come a long way from Mecha Frieza format. We've come a long way from SS3 format. We came a long way from even the last event where Storm was at full power. We've come a long way from those tournaments. I think we're just getting better. Diversity is increasing. Now we just got to see more cards in the card pool that increase the room for player skill to win. And you know, hopefully we see that happen. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think about this Top Cut breakdown down in the comments below. Really interested to know what you guys think. I mean, let me know what you thought about my coverage. Let me know what you think about the event, what you thought about the decks that topped. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Joey. This is Crossroad TCG, and I'll see you guys in the next video. You actually sat through all of that and made it to the end? I don't know how you did it, but now that you're here, you might as well hit the subscribe button that's right above me, or maybe check out some of these other videos. I don't know, and I guess we'll see you in the next one. I really don't know how you did it, but good on you.